What if just one choice could change everything? In Season 3, 5 timeless tales are rewritten, trust tested, fate twisted, compassion awakened. Step into the world where fairy tales turn upside down and discover what might have been.
What if the story of Rumpelstiltskin had ended differently? What if the queen, desperate and trembling, never managed to guess the strange little man's name? Instead of saving her child, she would be forced to hand him over. Imagine the cries of a mother echoing in a silent palace. Imagine a bargain fulfilled and a destiny rewritten. Tonight we enter a darker chapter of the fairy tale, a chapter where silence breeds curses and a single unsaid name reshapes the lives of generations. The final guess left the queen's lips, broken and breathless. She whispered the last name she could think of, and when Rumpelstiltskin only laughed, the chamber turned cold. His laughter was sharp, cruel, triumphant. He stepped forward, snatched the infant from her arms, and cradled the child with twisted delight. The queen lunged forward, screaming, but the king held her back. In a blink of light and smoke, Rumpelstiltskin vanished with the baby. The sound of the queen's sobs filled the hall, and the silence that followed would haunt the palace for decades. Far away, in a darkened forest, beneath crooked trees and a sky covered in storm clouds, Rumpelstiltskin laid the child within a glowing circle of fire. He muttered ancient spells, weaving threads of magic around the boy's fragile body. The air thickened, sparks hissed, and the infant cried in terror. With every word, the boy's future twisted. When the ritual ended, the baby no longer belonged to the queen. His identity was erased, his soul bound to darkness. From that night onward, he would be known only as Rumpelstiltskin II, the cursed heir to a monstrous legacy. The king declared the event forbidden. No one was to speak of the child again. To the world, the infant had never existed. The queen, pale and hollow, was forced to attend banquets with a smile, her crown shining while her heart bled. But at night, alone, she clutched empty blankets and wept. The sound of phantom cries haunted her. Servants swore they heard a baby wailing in the halls, though no child remained. The palace became a tomb of silence, filled not with joy but with the unspoken memory of a bargain gone wrong. Meanwhile, in the forest, the stolen child grew. His hair darkened, his eyes glowed faintly with the remnants of the curse. Rumpelstiltskin taught him spells to wither crops, songs that made wolves gather, and riddles to trick desperate villagers. The boy learned obedience, but deep in his heart, something stirred. An emptiness, a hunger for a touch he could not remember. Sometimes, staring at the moon, he felt tears on his cheeks without knowing why. The boy was powerful, but inside him lay a wound older than memory, the wound of being unloved. At 15, his master sent him into the world. "Prove yourself," Rumpelstiltskin demanded. The boy found a poor mother whose child was sick. He offered salvation, but only if she guessed his name. For 3 nights she tried. For 3 nights she failed. On the 3rd night, her baby was taken. The villagers screamed and cursed him, but the boy carried the infant into the night. His hands shook. He did not understand why his chest ached, why hot tears burned his face. The curse was alive inside him, but so was the memory of a cradle he never knew. Soon, whispers spread through the land. It was said the creature had returned, younger, stronger, merciless. "He is Rumpelstiltskin's son," some said. "He is his shadow reborn," others whispered. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Fathers sharpened swords they would never dare to raise. At night, doors were barred, candles snuffed, prayers whispered, and so the boy, now called Rumpelstiltskin II, carried not only a name but also a reputation that spread like wildfire, a monster before he even knew who he was. Years turned into decades. The queen could no longer bear the palace of lies. She cast aside her jewels, her silks, her titles, and left the king behind. She became a wanderer, her hair gray, her body frail. By 80, she was little more than a beggar, clothed in rags. surviving on bread crusts and pity. Yet her eyes, dimmed by age, still searched the world. For 60 years, she carried the same prayer in her heart, that she might see her child again before death claimed her. One cold night, the old woman heard screams from a cottage. She hurried forward and saw a figure at the door. His posture, his voice, the cruel curl of his smile. It was unmistakable. Though decades had passed, she recognized him instantly. It was her son. Rumpelstiltskin II stood tall, demanding the infant of a desperate young mother. The old woman staggered back, her breath caught in her throat. The child she had lost had returned, but as the very monster who once stole him. The old woman's heart quaked, but her resolve hardened. She could not run again, not this time. She followed him from village to village, hiding in shadows, her steps uneven, her lungs burning. Each night brought her closer to collapse, yet each night she pressed on. Every cry of a stolen child tore open her wound anew, but it also gave her strength. She knew she had only one chance left to undo her mistake, even if it cost her the last breath in her body. Then one night, fate answered. By a fire in the woods, Rumpelstiltskin II sang. It was a twisted lullaby, a chant half mad, half proud. Within the rhyme, he spoke his own name, clear, sharp, undeniable. The old woman froze. After 6 decades of silence, she had finally heard it. The name that held the key to breaking the curse. Her son's curse, her curse. She sank to her knees. The truth crashed down upon her like a storm. The boy was not simply a victim. He was her baby, her flesh and blood, twisted into a monster by her failure. His cruelty was not his own. It was the echo of her silence, of the king's greed, of a bargain never broken. In her wrinkled hands, she pressed her face, weeping. For 60 years she had carried guilt, and now she understood its full weight. The next day, she found a young mother in despair. Her baby had only 1 night left. The old woman grasped her hands and whispered, her voice trembling, "I know his name. Speak it. Do not falter. It will break him." The mother stared, hope flooding her face. The old woman prayed her words would be enough. After all, names had power, and this name carried the weight of 2 lifetimes. In the village square, Rumpelstiltskin II appeared before the crowd, confident and mocking. "Guess, if you dare," he sneered. But before he could finish, the young mother lifted her voice. "Your name is Rumpelstiltskin II." The words struck him like thunder. His smile shattered, his body trembled, and for the first time in his cursed life, fear filled his eyes. The ground shook. The sky split with light. Magic ripped away from him like chains snapping apart. His youthful form aged in an instant, melting into the body of a weary old man. 60 years of stolen time crashed back onto his frame. His eyes, no longer glowing, darted wildly, confused, broken, human. The crowd gasped. The monster was gone. What remained was only a man. Through the crowd, the old woman stepped forward. Her voice quivered as she whispered a word she had not spoken in decades. "Son." The man turned. At first, he did not know her. But when he looked into her eyes filled with grief, love, and guilt, something inside him stirred. Memories he had never known returned. The warmth of arms, the echo of a lullaby. In that moment, he understood. She fell to her knees beside him. He collapsed into her arms. The two clung to each other as if they could make up for 60 stolen years in a single embrace. Tears streamed down their faces. The villagers, once terrified, now watched in silence, many of them weeping too. For in that embrace was not just sorrow, but forgiveness, a broken bond reforged at the edge of time. The old woman raised her voice and told the truth at last. She spoke of the king's greed, of her own weakness, of the bargain struck in desperation. She admitted her failures, laid her guilt bare before the people. No more silence, no more lies. And as she spoke, the villagers saw not a beggar, not a queen, not a monster's mother, but a human being, broken and brave enough to confess. The story spread across the land, not as a tale of riddles or secret names, but as a warning of greed's poison, of silence's cost, of truth's power. Parents told it to their children, speak the truth, no matter how painful. Do not let fear or pride steal your voice, for silence too can be a curse, and sometimes the failure to speak a single name can change the course of a lifetime. And so, mother and son lived their final years together, two weary souls reunited at last. They had lost a lifetime, but in their last days they found peace. The curse was broken, but its scars remained, carved into history. And as this story closes, one question lingers. If a single word, a single name, held the power to change everything, would you have the courage to say it? The forest square sparkles with ribbons and flags for the annual Tortoise versus Hare race. The owl elder steps onto the stump and lifts a brass bell. This year, he booms, the tortoise and the hare will not race. A hush, then chaos. Monkeys chatter in disbelief. Squirrels tug their whiskers. The camera finds the tortoise by the lily pond, the hare on a sunny knoll, both turning away as the cheers sour into murmurs. Voices crackle like dry leaves. No race? What's a festival without the race? A young deer cries. Vendors close their net stands. Drummers stop mid-beat. The owl elder rubs his brow. Traditions end if their hearts are empty, he mutters. In the distance, a crimson tail flicks into view. At the pond, the tortoise watches ripples stretch and fade. I'm tired of being a proverb for slowness, he tells a cricket. If I move, it must be to matter, or I won't move at all. He slides a claw across the wet stone. I won't be remembered for chasing a rabbit I never catch. I want another kind of courage. On the knoll, the hare basks in adoration from a ring of mice. Fastest, yes, but racing proves nothing anymore, he yawns. I don't need applause to be quick. Foxglove sways, and the hare's eyes harden a fraction. Besides, repetition numbs the soul. The mice glance at each other, unsure how to clap for that. A sleek fox saunters into the square, bowing with theatrical grace. If the throne of speed and stamina lies empty, he purrs, permit me to claim it. Gasps turn to hungry whispers. The fox's grin reveals careful teeth. I'll give you a spectacle finer than your stale tradition. The fox sprints the meadow with impossible grace, vaulting hedges, skimming logs, somersaulting over a ravine thin as a blade. Marvelous, the crowd roars. Every stunt is precise, rehearsed, intoxicating. The tortoise watches, unease pooling in his eyes. The hare flicks an ear, smirking, but the smirk trembles. At dusk, the tortoise sits on a root and feels the earth pulse. If that fox rules our games, he'll rule our hearts, he whispers. A firefly lands on his shell and blinks like a metronome. Across the field, the hare kicks a stone too hard. It skips the creek like applause, then sinks. Moonlight stitches silver across the hills. Alone, the tortoise climbs a steep path, rests, climbs again. He wades a cold stream, counting breaths to 10, then 20, then 50. I move to matter, he repeats, quiet but certain. The night answers with cricket song and the far-off cough of an owl. In the badger's tavern, the fox slaps a poster onto a barrel. The new challenge, bets welcome, coins clink, eyes glitter. I'll host a race worthy of legends, he says, tail carving arcs in smoke. Follow me, and I'll make you winners. The room tilts toward him like iron to a magnet. Morning reveals quarrels brewing at every stump. Squirrels scribble odds on bark. Storks argue with swans about tradition versus progress. Two hedgehogs wrestle and roll into a berry cart. The festival drums return, but the rhythm is sharper now, impatient. Near a moon-bright stream, the tortoise and the hare stop as if choreographed. Neither speaks. Water travels over stones. Words struggle to catch up. Finally, the tortoise. I don't want to chase you anymore. A beat, the hare sighs. I'm tired of running with no finish line that means anything. The stream keeps their secret. They sit on opposite roots, then edge closer. The The fox isn't after a race, the hare says. He's after a crown. The tortoise nods. Then we stand together. A paw meets a claw. Awkward, honest. Somewhere an owl turns its head and blinks, as if history has coughed. At noon, the fox leaps onto a crate in the square. Tomorrow, the final race, he cries. Winner takes the laurel of the forest. Banners snap like whips. The fox's eyes skim the crowd and pause, just long enough, on a tortoise and a hare standing side by side. The pause becomes a challenge. Night again. On a flattened patch of moss, the tortoise draws paths with a wet twig, the scree slope, the thorny switchback, the river ford. You know the earth, the hare says. You know the air, the tortoise replies. We'll need both. They rehearse handoffs, signals, contingencies. If he sets traps, the hare asks. The tortoise touches his shell. Then we set trust. The owl elder rings a bell that sounds like old metal remembering storms. The fox launches forward, a red streak. The tortoise begins, steady, relentless. The hare shadows him, eyes scanning for danger. The crowd surges down the path, chanting, wagering, gasping. The fox kicks a hidden canister, smoke blooms, stinging and thick. Left, the hare shouts. He yanks a vine, snapping a snare before it cinches the tortoise's leg. The fox laughs, airy and cruel, and vaults a fallen pine, gaining ground. He's not racing, he's performing, the hare mutters. A tripline sings. The hare is jerked sideways, dragged toward a pit masked with leaves. He claws dirt, sliding. Take my shell, the tortoise cries, slamming himself under the hare like a wedge. With a heave, he flips the hare free. Then the moss gives way. The tortoise drops, vanishing into shadow. Silence explodes. Tortoise, the hare screams, voice raw. The forest holds its breath. Even the banners hang still. The hare's chest heaves. His speed becomes useless, his pride a stone. Please, he whispers to the pit, to the world, to himself. In that terrible quiet, the fox smirks and takes another elegant step forward. A ripple, a splash, then the tortoise surfaces in a spring-fed pool hidden beneath the pit, clinging to a root. His shell glistens like a lantern in a cave. The ground remembers me, he says, voice shaky but bright. The crowd erupts. Hope sprints faster than the hare ever could. The fox falters, eyes narrowing. Together again, the hare braces. The tortoise climbs. They move, one fast, one firm, past the final bend. The fox lunges, but he's winded by his own tricks. The hare slows so the tortoise can place a forefoot across the finish rope. The tortoise lifts his chin so the hare can cross with him. The rope snaps like a spell breaking. The owl elder raises a laurel and doesn't hand it to one head, but to two. May we remember, he says, voice clear, that the greatest victory is not speed or stamina alone, but the courage to go together. The drums return, this time warm, steady, whole. Alibaba, a poor woodcutter, carries a bundle of sticks through the desert forest. The wind smells of resin and hot sand. He stops when the clatter of hooves and steel echoes from the valley. 40 thieves halt before a cliff wall. The chief raises his hand. Open! Sesame! The rock splits open, revealing treasure glowing like fire. Instead of hiding, Alibaba steps out, drops his wood, and lifts his head. I'm not here to steal. I want to speak. Swords flash. Laughter roars. An ant dares to talk to wolves? Alibaba answers steadily. Your blades take from the weak. My words might bring more than gold. Another way. The chief squints, curious. If you're not afraid, prove it. Before the cave, the chief sets 3 trials. If Alibaba survives, he may join or claim his own demand. The thieves circle, torches hissing in the wind. A killer charges. Alibaba wields only his axe for chopping wood. He dodges, slips on gravel, then swings his axe down to block, twisting the blade aside. The attacker stumbles. Alibaba holds but does not strike. I do not want blood. The laughter dies into silence. Inside the cave, The ceiling cracks. A red gem rests on a pedestal above sliding sand. Instead of rushing, Alibaba studies the flow, loops a rope around a stone pillar, and lowers himself with the rhythm of the sand. He pulls the gem into a cloth sack, escaping just as dust and rocks crash down. The thieves hold their breath. The chief smirks. Make 40 killers sit and listen. Alibaba sits on the steps of stone, voice calm. Once there were 40 strong men who thought treasure made them rich. One day they found a desert village with only a dry well. Their treasure became sweat as they dug, until water burst forth, and they were called heroes. Mocking laughter fades. Torchlight shows weathered faces, now quiet. The chief chuckles, but with respect. You are clever, brave, and silver-tongued. Stay, lead us to riches. Alibaba shakes his head. I will not be a thief, but if you want wealth greater than gold, follow me into another life. The gang murmurs, some shout for his death, others whisper, let's try. The chief growls, 3 days. If your promise brings gain, I listen. If not, the sand will swallow you. Alibaba leads them to his home. Crooked roofs, empty market stalls, children crying near a dry well. Villagers scream at the sight of thieves. Alibaba raises his hand. They are not here to take. They are here to give. Bags of treasure spill in the square. Alibaba directs, buy seeds, hire well diggers, build a dam against drifting sand. The 40 thieves haul stones, dig trenches, sweat under the sun. Old men lean on sticks in shock. Children cautiously hand the workers bowls of thin water. One dusk, a jet of water bursts from the ground. Cheers explode like summer rain. A week later, the market reopens. The chief watches coins trade for rice, blankets, and salt. Gold in caves never multiplies, but markets do. Alibaba smiles. If you want more, you need more people than swords. But rumors spread. The governor's banner waves from the hill. Soldiers march down. Villagers tremble. The thieves grip hoes instead of blades. The chief sneers. Time for the sand to take you. Not yet, Alibaba answers. Let me speak. In the square, Alibaba kneels. These men were thieves, but for 3 days they dug wells, built dams, reopened trade. Punish me, I brought them here. The governor scowls. Do you think a few sacks of grain erase blood? An elder hobbles forth. Blood, sir? In this village, only water flows from the wells they dug. Villagers kneel around Alibaba and the 40 men. Children cry out, they gave us water. The governor hesitates. Law is strict, but so are facts. He sees the dam, the flowing well, the thriving market. He whispers, you can turn thieves into citizens. Prove it. The governor stamps a decree. The 40 must surrender weapons, labor for 1 year, then earn pardon if they do not relapse. A sigh spreads through the crowd. The chief stares at the paper, then at Alibaba, with humiliation, but also relief. Morning to dusk, they farm. Their hands, once used to hilts, grasp plows. They quarrel, collapse, rise again. Alibaba works with them, hauling timber, balancing accounts, leaving bowls of soup at doors. At night, he teaches letters. The chief scratches slowly. Patience, trust, people. One moonless night, former comrades appear. The treasure cave still overflows. Come back. The chief stands by the well, hears children breathing in sleep, water whispering below. He looks at his calloused hands, shakes his head. Gold in caves never grows. They spit and vanish. At dawn, the chief brings Alibaba to the cliff. He murmurs one last time, "Open sesame." The rock yawns, stale air stinging. He shoulders a bag of gold, walks out, then lays it at Alibaba's feet. This was my blood and pride. Now I leave it. The cave seals forever. A year passes. The governor returns to see a dam strong, fields golden, markets thriving, 40 men laughing in work. He rips the decree. Your debt is done. You belong here now. Cheers thunder. Drums beat. Dancers whirl under oil lamps. That night, the chief kneels before Alibaba handing a wooden tablet carved with open sesame. I thought this open treasure. You used it to open hearts. Alibaba lifts him up. The greatest treasure is each other. Alibaba proposes a well and market fund, each harvest a portion stored for travelers, children, and the poor. The 40, once thieves, now guard the storehouse, watch the dam, teach nomads to trade. The governor nods, from raiders to guardians, a rough road, but true. Alibaba writes to Kasim, the greedy brother from other tellings. In the letter, he describes wells, markets, and a magic phrase now stored not in stone, but in people's hearts. He ends, "Come if you want to start again." The desert wind still blows. Children run along the dam, tossing pebbles into water, ripples spreading like one choice rippling through a land. At a village festival, Alibaba steps on the dais. Faces glow in torchlight. Villagers, the 40, the governor, children laughing. He speaks. "When I stood before their swords, I wasn't braver than others. I just knew if we keep hiding, nothing will change." Silence, then applause. He adds, "My treasure is not in a cave, it is here."
In a quiet valley where endless mountains stood like silent guardians, a small village thrived. Life there was steady, predictable until the day trust itself began to crack. The villagers were simple folk bound to their sheep, their fields, and the long winters when snow blanketed the earth. Among them was a boy young, restless, and far too easily bored. Each morning, he was charged with a task that carried the weight of the entire community, to lead the flock up the hill and guard them until nightfall. On his small shoulders rested food, wool, and wealth. Yet to him, watching sheep nibble grass hour after hour felt less like duty and more like punishment. So one afternoon, an idea sparked in his mischievous mind. What if he shouted Wolf? Wouldn't the villagers drop everything and come running? The thought of their panicked faces made him laugh. And so he tried, Wolf, Wolf. His voice rang across the valley. Down in the village, people gasped, mothers dropped their baking, men abandoned tools, even children stopped their games. Grabbing sticks, axes, and torches, they raced uphill lonely to find no Wolf at all. Instead, they found the boy, rolling with laughter. At first, they sighed with relief. But soon their faces hardened into scowls. He had fooled them. The second time he cried Wolf, more reluctantly, they came again. And again, there was no Wolf. The third time, some refused to climb the hill at all. The boy's prank became a pattern, and trust shattered piece by piece. People muttered bitterly in the tavern, "He mocks us. He wastes our time. Never again." And yet, the boy laughed louder. He felt powerful to summon the entire village at will. At first, they sighed with relief. But soon their faces hardened into scowls. He had fooled them. The second time he cried Wolf, more reluctantly, they came again. And again, there was no Wolf. The third time, some refused to climb the hill at all. The boy's prank became a pattern, and trust shattered piece by piece. People muttered bitterly in the tavern, "He mocks us. He wastes our time. Never again." And yet, the boy laughed louder. He felt powerful to summon the entire village at will. His voice carried down to the village, desperate and trembling. But this time, silence followed. Men glanced at one another, shaking their heads. "It's another trick," muttered the carpenter. "I have bread in the oven. I won't be fooled again," whispered a woman. The air grew heavy with disbelief. No one moved. No one. Until an old man rose. His voice trembled, but his words cut clear. "If it is a lie, we lose a little time. But if it is the truth, we may lose everything: the sheep, our safety, and the boy's life. Even one last chance of truth is worth believing." Silence stretched. Then slowly, one villager reached for a torch. Another picked up a spear. Step by step, they chose to believe one final time. Together, hearts pounding, they raced toward the hill. Snow crunched underfoot. Torches flickered in the icy wind. Their breaths came fast as the villagers climbed toward the boy's cries. At the crest of the hill, they found him, pale, trembling, tears streaking his face. Relief overwhelmed him when he saw the glow of firelight. Thank you for coming. The wolf is real. And then, from the dark woods, eyes appeared. Not one, not two, a dozen, gleaming like stars of fire. A whole pack emerged, led by a massive alpha whose growl shook the earth. Its teeth glistened like knives in the moonlight. Fear surged through the villagers, but the old hunter barked commands, hold the line. Protect the flock, push them toward the ravine. The wolves lunged, chaos erupted, sheep bleated, scattering. Men swung clubs, women brandished torches, children clung to their mothers. The clash was brutal snarls, shouts, the thud of blows against fur and flesh. One wolf leapt straight for the boy. He stood frozen, unable to move. But at the last instant, the blacksmith roared and swung his hammer, knocking the beast aside. Blood streaked his arm. He grimaced but pressed on. The boy, shaken, realized the cost of his lies. People were bleeding because of him. Torches lit the battlefield in a hellish glow. Dogs barked and snapped at wolves, driving them back. Together, the villagers pushed the predators toward an old wooden bridge spanning a deep gorge. The wolves, desperate, crowded onto it. The bridge groaned, cracks splintered the night air. Then with a thunderous crack it collapsed. Half the pack tumbled into darkness. Their cries echoed, then vanished. The alpha howled in fury before retreating into the forest. Defeated, slowly, silence returned. The boy collapsed to his knees in the snow, sobbing, I'm sorry. I lied. I betrayed your trust, but you still came. And because of you, I live. The old man placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Your lies nearly destroyed us, but a final spark of belief saved you. Remember, words can shatter trust, but honesty can heal it. The villagers, bruised but alive, gathered the frightened sheep. They returned together closer than before. Dawn broke, painting the snow gold. The village returned with its flock, tired yet triumphant. The boy walked among them, no longer mocked, but humbled. The next day, a wooden sign rose in the village square. Carved into it were words, even in doubt, listen once more. The boy changed. He never lied again. He worked hard, faithfully guarding the sheep. Slowly, trust returned. Children followed him, calling him little hero. Elders nodded with respect. Years passed. The night of the wolf attack became legend. Parents told their children not as a warning of lies, but as proof of the power of forgiveness and one last chance. If the villagers had not believed, all would have been lost. But because they chose faith one final time, the boy was saved, the flock preserved, and the community united. In life, sometimes the last chance to believe is the one that changes everything.
The meadow stretched wide beneath a blazing sun. Golden light poured down, painting the grass in hues of emerald and fire. Butterflies drifted lazily. Bees buzzed in patient rhythm, and the air shimmered with warmth. On the tallest blade of grass sat the grasshopper, wings vibrating like a tiny violin. His songs rose high and clear, echoing across the field. Life is beautiful, he cried between verses. Why waste a moment? Down below, the ant trudged steadily. A grain of wheat twice his size rested on his back. Step by step, he carried it home, returning moments later for another. His brow glistened with sweat, but his eyes never wavered from the task. The grasshopper looked down and laughed. Come, friend ant, let the world hear your voice. The ant shook his head, too focused to respond. To him, every trip meant survival. Summer was a gift, yes, but it was also a warning. Prepare before the cold arrives. One afternoon, as cicadas hummed and the sky burned orange, the grasshopper hopped closer. Why do you labor so hard, ant? Look around. The fields are endless, the sun generous, food everywhere. Sing with me, dance with me. The ant placed his grain carefully in the pile. Because tomorrow is never as certain as today. When winter comes, no flower will remain, no fruit will fall. What will you eat then? The grasshopper waved dismissively. Winter is far away. Why fear shadows when the sun is so bright? The ant replied quietly. The sun moves, the seasons turn. A wise creature listens not only to today's music, but tomorrow's silence. The grasshopper laughed, strummed his wings, and leapt back to his perch. Two ways of living, one of present joy, one of future caution, stood in silent contrast. Time passed. The fields, once lush, began to dry. Leaves fell, brittle and brown, rustling with every breeze. The sun sank earlier, its warmth thinner, its rays weaker. The songs of the grasshopper still filled the meadow, but occasionally even he paused to notice the change. The ant worked harder, carrying heavier loads, ensuring every crevice of his burrow was filled. He noticed the grasshopper watching him sometimes, a flicker of unease in those bright eyes, quickly drowned out by another melody. Do you not see? The ant called one evening. The season changes. Food will vanish. The grasshopper smiled, though his wings trembled. Then I shall sing to the snow. Music needs no harvest. Yet when the wind blew colder, his notes sounded thinner, carried away too quickly, as though the air itself no longer wished to listen. Winter arrived with merciless force. Snow blanketed the earth in silence. The flowers bowed, then disappeared. Rivers froze, trees stood bare like skeletons. The meadow was no longer green, but a wasteland of white. Inside his burrow, the ant huddled near piles of grain, seeds, and crumbs. His tiny fire glowed warmly. He felt safe, prepared, and proud. His back ached from months of toil, but his heart rested in comfort. The grasshopper, however, wandered starving across the frozen field. His wings shook uncontrollably, and each breath emerged as mist. The once proud musician tried to sing, but no melody came. His throat cracked, his belly empty. He thought of summer, of sunlight, of laughter and despair wrapped around him like the snow. At last, weak and trembling, he collapsed near the ant's burrow. His last thought was not of pride, but of regret. He had never known hunger could silence even the strongest song. With fading strength, the grasshopper dragged himself to the ant's wooden door. His body shivered, his voice cracked as he whispered, "Ant, friend, I am starving. I am freezing. Please share a crumb, a flame, anything." The ant startled at the knock. He knew the story should end here, with rejection. He looked at the heavy door, then at his hoarded food. Survival told him, protect what is yours. But then he remembered summer evenings filled with song, the way the meadow once danced with joy because of this foolish singer. His heart battled his head. Slowly, the ant placed his hand on the latch. The ant opened the door. Snow rushed in, followed by the frail figure of the grasshopper. The sight was pitiful, eyes hollow, body skeletal, wings drooping like broken leaves. "You mocked me," said the ant softly. "You wasted summer. Why should I help you now?" Tears filled the grasshopper's eyes. "Because if you don't, I will not live to see another song. I know I was foolish, but even folly deserves mercy." The ant closed his eyes. Principle screamed within him, but compassion pulled stronger. At last he sighed. "Come in. Sit by the fire, eat. But know this, sharing is not free. You must learn why work matters." The grasshopper stumbled inside, collapsing near the warmth. The ant placed seeds before him. The grasshopper ate slowly, each bite bringing tears of gratitude. His body warmed, his heart softened. By the fire he whispered a song, not loud but tender. The melody rose gently, filling the burrow with comfort. The ant paused. He realized his room, once silent except for crackling flames, now glowed with something more: hope, companionship, beauty. That night, for the first time, the ant rested not only with food in his belly but with music in his ears. Days turned into weeks. The grasshopper grew stronger, and though he could not labor like the ant, he began to help in small ways, organizing piles, sweeping dust, guarding the entrance from drafts. More importantly, he sang. His music lifted the ant's spirit when weariness weighed him down. What once seemed like idle noise now felt like medicine for the soul. The ant began to look forward to evenings, when after long hours of tending stores, the grasshopper's voice painted the dark with warmth. It was strange. One had spent his life in silence, the other in song. But together they found something new. Balance. One particularly cold night, as wind howled outside, the ant asked, "Do you regret singing all summer while I worked?" The grasshopper lowered his gaze. "Yes, but no. Music is my breath. Without it, I am no more. But I see now, song alone cannot sustain life. Without work, the music dies too." The ant nodded, surprised. "And I perhaps have learned the opposite. Work without joy becomes empty. Food fills the stomach, but what fills the heart?" For a long moment, silence and firelight answered them both. The next evening, the grasshopper composed a song for the ant. It told of small feet carrying sons of grain, of courage against storms, of loyalty to unseen tomorrows. He sang with tears in his eyes, and the ant listened with tears in his own. Never had he thought his labor could be seen as noble, even beautiful. For once, he felt pride not just in survival but in meaning. The harshest blizzards came, shrieking through the meadow, rattling trees, burying everything in snow. But inside, laughter and music echoed against the walls. The fire burned steady, food was shared, and the ant's once lonely winter became alive with companionship. The grasshopper sang louder than the wind, and the ant's courage grew with every note. Together they endured storms that once would have broken them apart. At last, winter broke. Snow melted, rivers flowed, flowers awoke. The meadow returned to life, brighter than memory. The ant and grasshopper emerged together. Now they did not walk apart, one laboring, one singing, but side by side. The grasshopper gathered straw, slower but willing. The ant carried seeds, stronger but smiling. Work and song wove seamlessly into their days. Other creatures of the meadow began to notice. Rabbits paused, birds perched, mice peeked. They saw an ant and a grasshopper working, laughing, singing together. Curiosity turned to admiration. One by one, others joined. Birds carried twigs, mice stored crumbs, rabbits dug burrows, all while music filled the air. Labor no longer felt like burden. Song no longer felt like waste. Together, they built a community that worked with joy and celebrated survival with beauty. Word spread across valleys of an ant who had shared and a grasshopper who had learned. No longer symbols of judgment or folly, they became symbols of harmony. Parents told the story not as a warning, but as a promise, that kindness changes fates and balance creates strength. The moral was rewritten. Work sustains the body, art sustains the soul. Sharing sustains us all. And so the ant and the grasshopper lived not as enemies of philosophy, but as partners of life. Their story whispered through generations, a lesson beyond seasons. Life is fullest when duty and joy walk hand in hand.